I'm Andy.
I'm Evan, and you're watching Challenge Game.
Hey Internet, welcome to Challenge Game. This is the show where we challenge each other to play games.
Every episode, Andy and I will trade off between who plays the game. The challenger offers history and trivia,
And the challengee will play the game and review it. In this, our inaugural episode, Evan is going to play Castlevania Circle of the Moon for Game Boy Advance. Castlevania Circle of the Moon hit store shelves back in 2001 as a launch title for the Game Boy Advance. Remember the GBA? It was that brick that you couldn't see anything on. No, not that one. No, the successful one. No, just no. There we go. 2001 was a fantastic year for gaming. We saw 3 legendary consoles hit the market in the GBA, the GameCube, and the Xbox. The first-person shooter was reinvented by the introduction of Halo, and just look at that game list. Look at them! Holy crap, this year was great for games. This is like a who's who's list of gaming icons, and no list of that nature would be complete without everybody's favorite whip-cracking, vampire-slaying family and their signature franchise, the Belmonts return in Castlevania Circle of the Moon. Before we talk about Circle of the Moon, let's talk about where the Castlevania franchise was at the time this game came out. As most of you know, Castlevania humbly started on the NES in 1987. It featured a whip-cracking vampire hunter by the name of Simon Belmont. The game was fun, fast-paced, hard as balls, and a true classic. So how do you follow that up? By completely changing the gameplay, of course. This was the thing to do back in the day. Sometimes it worked amazingly, and sometimes not so much. Castlevania was on the terrible side of that spectrum. However, as broken as Simon's Quest was, it inadvertently paved the way for the masterpiece that was Castlevania Symphony of the Night. What can be said about Symphony of the Night that hasn't already been said 1,000 times? The game revolutionized the way a Castlevania game should be made. Gone were the hair-yanking platforming sections and linear level progression. Instead, we were treated to a game similar to Metroid in all the right ways. Dracula's castle was yours to explore and plunder, growing in power as you took down Drax's demonic house guests one by one, until you finally faced the Bloodsucker and ended his tyrannical reign, once and for all! So Konami, you just set the standard for your franchise. How will you capitalize on your success? Oh, okay, I guess you wanted to fuck it up. So after 4 long years, we finally received a worthy successor to Symphony of the Night in Circle of the Moon for GBA. It continued the Metroidvania style of free-roaming RPG action that has become synonymous with the franchise. This title features a sprawling Dracula's castle consisting of 14 areas, many of which were taken directly from Symphony. No, seriously, the map looks freaking identical to Symphony of the Night.
Did I play the wrong game? I thought we were talking about Circle of the Moon.
We are, but that's the thing. Symphony is a classic game, and Circle of the Moon very smartly stays true to this format. But at the same time, it brings back Castlevania's signature weapon, the whip, making this game stay true to the revolutionary gameplay of Symphony, at the same time having that classic Castlevania feel. The story is set in 1830. Dracula is about to be revived by the evil Countess Camilla as a trio of vampire hunters race to stop her. The trio consists of Morris Baldwin, a grizzled veteran vampire hunter, and his 2 pupils, his son Hugh and our hero Nathan Graves.
Pretty sure you said the Belmonts were the heroes of this game.
Yeah, about that. I lied. Anyway, the plot to destroy Dracula is cut short by his exploding bats. He destroys the floor underneath Nathan and Hugh, and they fall to their deaths. Just kidding. They're perfectly fine. Duh. Hugh breaks the first rule of any horror movie and decides to go off alone.
There are a couple of things about Circle of the Moon that I want to touch on because before replaying the game for this video, I had on some pretty thick rose-tinted nostalgia glasses. This game is hard. I don't remember it being this hard. It starts out pretty easy, except for the bosses, which take a death or two to figure them out, like many games. No grinding needed, just straight up whip snapping. Then you encounter this guy without a cross and get wrecked again and again and again. This is the first part in the game where I had to consult a guide because I'm stupid and also didn't want to go searching for and trying out all the different sub-weapons. And the cross is just the best sub-weapon. Once you grab it, don't drop it because all the bosses become way easier once you've got it. With the cross, I don't even have to get near Adramalik. Once you beat him though, shit just gets real outside of boss rooms. And it just keeps getting more real until you see shit like this! As we mentioned earlier, this game takes cues from Metroid, and those elements are clear right away. You're bombarded with all these nooks and crannies that you know you will soon explore, and progression happens similar to Symphony of the Night. You kill enemies to get experience and level up, and you kill bosses to gain items that will allow you to access new areas of the castle. There are tons of platforming sections and challenging enemies along the way. Speaking of platforming sections, take a look at these scenes. You know what's similar about them? Yeah, that's right, roughly exactly everything. The platforming in this game is boring and samey. It's just huge shafts of little hills that force me to double tap left and right repeatedly while trying to kill or dodge enemies. Many of these shafts have pathways that lead to a sort of dead end, but with a healing item at the end. You just have to go through the gauntlet of enemies to get there. Except for him. He just wants to dance. Like me. Circle of the Moon also featured a core game mechanic that hasn't been seen in Castlevania since, and for good reason. This core mechanic was the Dual Setup System, or DSS. In this system, you obtain cards from enemies, which you can then use to augment Nathan or his weapons. There are 20 DSS cards in total, which feature Roman gods such as Mercury and Mars, and mythological creatures like the Griffin and the Thunderbird. When you pair cards together, you can make different combinations of power-ups, such as a Flame Whip, the ability to heal, or run really fast. I know some of you might like the DSS system, but the way your cards randomly drop from enemies make obtaining them a guessing game. I used the internet to help me out, but I feel like these cards could have been placed in any of the various upgrade locations scattered throughout the castle, and it would have improved the gameplay experience.
To Circle of the Moon's credit, once you beat the game, you do unlock a mode that starts you off with every single DSS card already unlocked, so if you don't find them all on your first playthrough, you'll have a chance to see them all in action. That is, if you're not too frustrated to play through the game a second time.
There are actually several modes you unlock, but we'll talk about those later. Your first time through, you'll probably only use the whip and just a handful of cards. Some of them are quite good, like the Jupiter Mandragora combo, which uses mana but replenishes your health as long as you're standing still. This is helpful because healing items are very rare and also finite, so if you get rocked by enemies in a room and are far away from a save point, this is your best bet for keeping alive. Similar to most other Castlevania games, each enemy attack will launch you backwards. This can make boss battles tricky and certain enemies tough to strike with just the whip. It makes using your sub-weapons and DSS cards nearly a requirement. The bosses will seriously wreck your shit if you're not careful. And you don't want to be impatient while dispatching them either, because they do tons of damage.
In the Japanese version of this game, Death has dialogue with the hero before their battle. This is not the case in the American version. Do you care? No? Well, do you have a time machine? Because it's too late now!
Graphically, this game is really dark, and I get lost easily. If I were playing this on a regular GBA instead of an SP, I would have made no progress. And there's nothing special with the enemies. They're all simply palette swaps of other enemies, just with a mix-up of moves. And Konami does that sort of thing all the time with Castlevania, so that's also not something new to gripe about. Except, kind of. Some of these names are just bad. Flame Armor, Ice Armor, Forest Armor, Earth Demon, Flame Demon, Beast Demon, Brain Float. There are a handful of inspired names like Dullahan or Succubus, names that nod back to Symphony of the Night, but most of the monsters in this game wear what essentially are one or two word descriptions on what they are. Areas are mostly unique and distinguishable, though some can feel a little samey aesthetically, like the platforming spots we were talking about earlier. This game looks far better on a Game Boy Player or a Game Boy Micro because then the colors stand out like they're supposed to. But as far as music goes, right from the get-go with that title music straight from Rondo of Blood, it's good. The Catacombs music is good, the audience room music is good. Dude, just listen. catchy as the classic Vania tunes, and the melodies definitely feel like they belong in a Castlevania game. Even the scarier parts, like the underground waterway. If you have a GBA that has a headphone jack, the jams sound even jammier. The final form of Dracula takes cues from Symphony of the Night by making him... oh jeez. What is that? He actually wouldn't be so bad if he didn't have those chestburster wieners hanging there, just being wieners. They throw up red bubbles occasionally, just like regular wieners do. Wait, what was that? They don't? Are you fucking serious? Shit.
After you kick Drax's butt back into his coffin for another 100-some-odd years, the castle collapses around you. You escape unharmed naturally and find yourself on the cliff overlooking the castle. Hugh and Morris are there. Morris tells Hugh he effed up, and Hugh is still a dick. Credits. When replaying this game, we were struck by how some of the design choices really hurt the overall experience of the game.
There are some things like enemy placement to way more important problems, such as how broken the DSS random drop system is. Circle of the Moon's DSS system, while innovative, misses the mark in many ways. Chief among them is the randomness of the drops. There is no rhyme or reason to why which enemies drop certain cards, and the drop rate on some of the higher value cards is insanely uncommon.
Fortunately, once you beat the game, it gives you a code for Magician Mode, which starts you off with all the DSS cards unlocked, but you have to play through the entire game dealing with the crappy drop mechanics. There is also a code for playing the game without any DSS cards, and one where you have your luck stat maxed out. But honestly, very few people are going to want to play through this game multiple times. The Castlevania standard is here. There's great music, solid gameplay, but many of the innovative features miss the mark. Personally, I give this game a 5 out of 10. It's the benchmark for an average Metroidvania style game.
And if I saw this game walking through the store, I would probably turn my head and pretend I didn't see it. So what I would do, I wouldn't look at it.
Rating.
I'm not going to look at it.
It's not a rating.
I don't want to look at it. I don't want to see that person. Game, whatever. What do you want to call it? Do you ever play Yoshi's Island?
No.
Do you want to?
No.
Yeah, you do.